Hey y'all, thanks for stopping by. So Charlie Kirk was trending yesterday on Twitter for saying something that I would expect Charlie Kirk to say, frankly. What he posted was, there is a war on whites in the West. The ridiculous statement, frankly. But there were plenty of people who agree with it. So I thought I would explain some of the data behind why people say that and kind of what it means. So, normally in America, when people bring up this whole war on whites in the West thing, the first thing that they'll bring up is voting demographics and immigration. They'll say that, the Democratic Party and the left are bussing people up from the global South to vote in American elections, to vote Democratic, to change, that side of the American system. Now, this is what I find really ridiculous about that statement in general. Hear me out. You ever talk to anybody from Mexico? Like, really? These are hyper-conservative people. These are strong family units. These are hardworking, sweat of your brow, very, very religious, like Catholic plus type people coming up from the South. Why do you think they would vote Democratic? Like, this is GOP bread and butter right here. The reason that a lot of people from the global South that immigrate to America vote Democratic instead of voting Republic is because, frankly, the face of the GOP is largely racist. I don't think that that's hard to deny, that you have a lot of the frontrunners for the GOP who say very outlandish things. I think the most common one that people bring up would be, Trump with his, I'm sure some are very fine people, or, like the Marjorie Taylor Greene lady and her space lasers from Jewish folks. But, the GOP says some outlandish stuff. So, from someone in an outside perspective who comes in and, they see one group of people who, admittedly, they do weird stuff, but their broad focus seems to be helping folks. Versus another group whose broad focus is, admittedly, this whole bootstrap culture, stand up on your own, but whose faces are spreading hateful rhetoric. What would you do? Like, if you came in from an outside perspective, you're given the opportunity to vote in something, would you vote for the person who is seemingly openly racist, or the person who is just kind of a shithead? The other part of it is they'll talk about the declining white birth rate in the United States when people talk about this, war on whites. And they won't say that about just the United States. They'll say it about anywhere in the world. So here's what's interesting about that. You're blaming interracial marriage. That's what you're doing. Or not even interracial marriage, but just interracial relationships in general. That is what you're blaming right now. If you completely locked the country down, no one in, no one out, you would have declining white birth rate because you have interracial relationships. Unless you are implying that you want to make laws to stop that from happening, without immigration, you would have declining white birth rate because you have mixed race children and, triracial children. You can blame that whole decline on the way that the census takers take this information. Because they're only looking at, when you see this whole, steep or this drop off, they're not counting mixed race kids in these numbers. And I've always felt kind of weird about that, frankly. It doesn't make much sense to me to say that, this child is not, like, you're actively saying that the child is not white, even though it's half of a, like one of their parents were white, So, like, that's on you. That's on your folks for saying that there's this decline when all it is just people having kids with who they want. So, yeah, I guess the whole point of this is, you know, most of the people who I'm assuming watch my channel that would know that Charlie Kirk is just trying to whip people up. But yeah, people somehow really believe it, I guess because they don't look deeper into the data that they're presented. They look at these graphs and say, oh, look, it's right. But you really need to look into this data that people are trying to present to you, because a lot of the times they're not giving you the whole picture. Or they're giving you just enough information to shape their narrative. You know what I mean? I'll post some of the census data in the description, so if you want to look at it, you can. But yeah, honestly, it doesn't make sense. You know, it's just it's a hyper exaggeration of what's happening. But I guess that's kind of like the GOP playbook at this point. So what can you do? Y'all try to have a good day.